Hello and welcome to Archvelder's Hacks with Archvelder and his amazing hacks. So this video is about a weird way to level up alts in Season of Discovery. It is kind of a strange one, this. The basic method I'm going to be showing you can be used in a number of different quests at all levels, but I'm going to focus on one specific example to illustrate roughly how it works. If you've ever watched my retail videos, one of my favourite leveling strategies there is to glitch multiple quest helper NPCs and use them to level super fast. Now obviously we can't do that in Classic or Season of Discovery. Or can we? Or can we? Or can we? Let's find out. So in Redridge Mountains there is a cave in the far northwest of the zone called Render's Rock. Hidden in an alcove at the back of the cave is the quest giver Corporal Keishan. If he's not here, he will usually reappear after a few minutes. You can use the command /tar core to locate him. In Cataclysm, they turned Keishan into a Rambo-type character and built an entire, very stupid and entertaining questline around him. But back in Vanilla, he's just part of a fairly normal escort quest. I say fairly normal. This is where it gets interesting. He is basically an almost invincible tank. So much so that if you manage to get yourself killed on this quest, he'll actually go on fighting everything in the zone for some time. He can handle multiple opponents at once, and crucially, every time he resets combat, he regenerates to full health. This makes him more resilient than most actual player tanks. Even if he somehow dies, he resets within the cave itself, unlike a human player who has to trudge back from the graveyard. Where this gets more interesting is that provided you do a decent amount of damage, you get full experience for the NPCs that Keishan fights. The qualifying amount seems to be around 50%. As I was completing the quest, I began to realise I was getting more experience from fighting with Keishan than I was just questing or grinding mobs. So I began to wonder if I could just follow Keishan to the end of the quest, then reset it and restart it, and just keep doing that until I'd outleveled the zone. Unfortunately, it's not quite that simple. There's some crucial information you need to know to make this viable. If we look at Wowhead comments dating back to the time this quest was introduced almost 20 years ago, you can see that a lot of people are complaining about Keishan's pathing abilities and his habit of running off and getting players killed. Indeed, everyone has a story about specific escort quests in OG Vanilla, where an escort NPC rushed around like a drunken squirrel on roller skates, pulling everything in the zone. So using Keishan as a tank wasn't and still isn't really viable in Vanilla proper. However, because of the added player power in the form of runes, our characters are much stronger in Season of Discovery than they ever were in Vanilla proper. Abilities like Living Bomb make fighting multiple NPCs much easier. There's a specific issue players have mentioned about Keishan, and that is on exiting the cave. Keishan tends to pull every orc in the vicinity, leading to a certain wipe. There are quite a number of orcs in the area around the cave entrance, more than Keishan can handle. However, there are several ways around this. The first and most simple strategy is to just let Keishan die and run back to his spawn location. All the orcs Keishan just killed on the way out should still be dead, so this is quite efficient. Mob density is greatest inside the cave, so you don't really lose anything doing this. The second method is to use evade mechanics and jump on one of these cages, which will prevent you from dying whatever happens to Keishan. You only need to use these methods if the mobs outside the cave haven't been killed recently and or there aren't any other players around. You'll want us to try this strategy off-peak, but not during the twilight hours. You need enough players to thin out mobs so Keishan doesn't pull too many, but you also want some mobs around in order to grind experience. Now, before anyone suggests leveling in a group and doing dungeons, instead this strategy is mainly aimed at solo players, though I was quite surprised at how many players who were grouped up around me were dying or having aggro issues. Aside from Keishan just thinning mobs out for you. You are expending less of your character's resources per kill for the same amount of experience, and that speeds things up remarkably. This is kind of just common sense. You can grind mobs faster with an invincible tank than without one. You must stick with Kishin the whole time, but the spawn rates of mobs in Render's Rock are quite frequent, and you rarely run out of orcs to kill. In the various versions of WoW Classic, mob grinding levels at roughly the same speed as questing. So logically, grinding mobs with Kishin or any other powerful escort NPC in the game should generally be faster than either grinding mobs or questing. The Kishin quest can be picked up at level 19, though you'll need at least a few levels more than that as the cave is quite dangerous. And you'll probably die quite a bit before you figure out how all this works. The most difficult bit is actually getting to Kishin in the first place. It is much easier after you've located him. A simple strategy is to go through the cave during peak playing time when there'll be other players around killing orcs. Park your character at Kishin's spawn location and go and do something else. Then come back off peak when you and Kishin will have more orcs to kill. Another strategy is to use lag to get through the cave without having to do any fighting, as lag effectively pacifies the orcs. There's more about that on my Patreon. Also, we have a bunch of amazing exploits for classic retail and an actual working dupe for duos in the Plunderverse. If other people are doing the quest, you can hang out with them and pick off stray mobs. This allows you to pick up some low-risk experience. When you are done with the quest, you can get back to Redridge with the following skip. Just jump on one of the mushrooms in the cave, and then jump in the air and disconnect with Alt F4. You'll find yourself back at Redridge when you log back in.